Hi everybody! So today I'm going to talk about the Every Student Succeeds Act. And in order to do so, to give you a historical context of why the ESSA is so different from the laws that came before, we're going to have to start by talking about the No Child Left Behind Act. I know that's familiar to most of us teachers who are based in the United States, but the No Child Left Behind Act, even though it started with promise, and because it was the first sort of sweeping legislation that changed elementary and secondary education so much, I think, we definitely need to talk about it for why it wasn't a success. So the No Child Left Behind Act was passed in 2001 with bipartisan support. And though it made a lot of changes to the educational system, it also very quickly came under a lot of criticism, and by 2015, that criticism was enough to bring in the ESSA. So what did the No Child Left Behind Act do? Why did it fail? I think it failed because of two primary reasons. Number one, it put the onus of success on the students rather than the teachers. And number two, it measured that success by standardized tests rather than by effort or rather than by any other metric of progress. So as a teacher, I think we can all understand that when your success is not necessarily determined by your efforts, it's going to be very, very hard for you to support that system. So we all want our students to succeed. We all want them to progress, but there are some circumstances by which we know that is not going to happen, or it's not going to happen to the extent that people want it to happen. And a lot of students, for example, if standardized tests are your measurements for how students are succeeding, a lot of students just aren't very good at standardized tests. That's one of the reasons why the SATs are sort of the emphasis on them as a metric of whether a student will succeed in college has been lowered, because a good SAT score doesn't necessarily mean that you are the most creative student, that you have the strongest of ideas. It just means that you can do very well on a standardized test. So now that we've gone over a little bit of the background of the No Child Left Behind Act, let's talk about the ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. Okay, so the ESSA was passed in 2015 in December, and again, it applies to K through 12 schools. Now, the ESSA differs from No Child Left Behind in that it allows primarily for more variety. Under No Child Left Behind, the standards for progress, the standards for success were very, very standardized, which is why standardized testing was the major method that they were using to check whether that progress was being achieved. Now, ESSA leaves it much more to the state and local levels to determine those metrics for success. Every state can determine what determines success. And they can submit that information to the government, and then they will be measured by that metric rather than by one system that applies to all the states. Therefore, it lets each of the states determine their problem areas, which schools won't be able to achieve these standards, which schools may have problems when looking to achieve these standards, and how they can rectify those problems when and if they occur. The other thing the ESSA does is it allows for a lot more innovation. Because each state can choose a different metric for success, it allows each state to determine, okay, what is success? The ESSA does have standards. It requires that states have a system by which they prepare the students for success in college or success in a career. Now, that's actually great because that allows for the proliferation of more career paths. If you think about funneling everybody into college, well then, okay, but what if you have students who aren't interested in college? What if you have students who are interested in technical fields or other careers that they don't need a four-year education for? So under that umbrella, the ESSA allows for a lot more flexibility as far as programs, as far as student success, and as far as flexibility of teachers. When you put the emphasis on teacher innovation, making sure that their students are engaged, making sure that their students are getting the education they actually want, rather than just assuming that everybody wants to go to university, that allows for a much broader definition of progress and a much broader definition of success. So we'll have to see what the ESSA does in terms of actually allowing this flexibility to play out, since it hasn't really been in effect for 2 years yet. But I'm very hopeful that it provides much more opportunity for both students and teachers in the future to innovate and to be creative and to allow variety back into an educational system that has been relatively stagnant for quite a while.